Hey guys, my name is Lisa, and today I'm going to be sharing my miscarriage story with you. So I'm going to start by saying that if you think that you are having a miscarriage, if you're having symptoms of having a miscarriage, call your doctor. If you are having pain and bleeding, particularly if you're having pain along with the bleeding, call your doctor or go to the ER. And for the people that have had miscarriages and you're sort of in the healing process, if you've had it recently or even in the past, it's kind of good to, at least I watched a few other videos and it kind of helped me to say that that's the same thing that happened to me, you know, and helped me to feel like I wasn't alone, and it helped me to talk to people about it. And it's been 10 months since my miscarriage, so I'm in a really good place about it right now. I don't really cry about it anymore. I'm sort of in a place of hope right now as we try for another pregnancy. So probably not going to break down or anything like that, and that's not to say that this isn't a very serious subject, because it is. But I've had a lot of time to heal. And just talk to people about it, and talk to other people that it happened to. And at the time when it happened, I felt very alone when it was actually happening, because I didn't know anyone at the time who had had a miscarriage. But now, after I had it, people have come out, family members, friends, and actually said that they have had one too. I guess it's not something that you just bring up, you know, in everyday conversation. But I found out that it's a pretty common thing to happen, and you're not a freak. You know, it's probably not something that you did if it did happen to you, and most likely you won't know what caused it. At least in my case, I didn't know, and you know, I basically just had to give it to God and just say, okay, it is what it is, it happens, I can't do anything about it, but just look forward. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to tell you my story, and I'm going to try not to ramble. Okay, here goes. Okay, so my husband and I had been married for 5.5 years. We're now married for 6, but at the time 5.5. Not that it makes any difference, but so after being married that long, we decided that we were finally ready to start trying for our first child. So I started taking prenatal vitamins. I started eating better, more vegetables and more water, and I started moving a little bit more. And so we started trying, and it took a month. We started in October, and we found out on Thanksgiving 2011 that we were pregnant. It was a really awesome day. First of all, it was 2 days after my husband's birthday, and so, you know, what a cool present to be able to give him. And then also, being that it was on Thanksgiving, my husband's family was in town from out of state, and so we were going to have lunch with my family and dinner with my husband's family. So I wrapped up the pregnancy test, and I presented it to my mom, and I presented it to his mom, and there was crying involved. Everybody was happy. We called family members that were out of state. We called, you know, we called everyone. We basically just announced it to everyone, basically on the day that we found out. And looking back, I don't regret it, because I didn't know that I was going to have a miscarriage, but after my miscarriage, everyone was so supportive, and I don't think that it would have been that way had I not announced that we were. And I needed that support. You know, it really helped me to get through it, to talk to everyone and just be open with everyone about it. Okay, so everything was going completely perfect. The only huge pregnancy symptoms that I were having was I was really tired. Like, I started going to bed at like 8 o'clock at night as opposed to 11 or 12 every night. I just had no energy. I felt good, but I was just tired. Also, my chest was really sore, and I had a lot of pressure in my uterus abdomen area, I could definitely tell that I was pregnant, and my uterus was growing. So we scheduled my first prenatal appointment for November 6th, which I believe was a Tuesday. And I was very apprehensive about it. I was nervous. I didn't know what kind of test they were going to do. It was my first time being pregnant, and I also pretty much knew that they were going to give me a pap smear, which made me so nervous because the thought of them sticking something inside me and scraping while I'm pregnant scared me to death. But I was due for one, and looking back now, I would not have done it at the time, but I got one, and I kind of regret it. But anyways, when they gave me the pap smear, I bled, and I bled so much that I had to wear a pad, actually, for like a day and a half. And so that was pretty scary, being pregnant and bleeding that much. The doctor assured me it was normal, and, you know, and I went on my merry way. So the blood test, everything came back completely, perfectly normal. And the urine test came back that I was definitely pregnant. She told me my uterus was growing, which was great. And everything was good. So about 2 days after my prenatal appointment, they called me and told me that all of my tests were perfect, and also that I had a urinary tract infection. So they told me that they were going to call in a prescription for Keflex, I believe it was, and that I should pick it up later that day. So I went to my sister's birthday party, and afterwards I picked up my prescription, and I took it that night. I took my first dose that night. I woke up the next morning, and I was bleeding again. And so I was definitely concerned by it and worried, obviously, because anytime you're bleeding when you're pregnant, it's, you know, they say it can be normal, but I asked my mom, I asked my husband's mom, I asked friends, none of them bled when they were pregnant, although the doctor said you can bleed when you're pregnant. So I was worried, but I wasn't thinking that I was having a miscarriage. So, and I don't know if it was the medicine or whatnot. Anyways, so I started taking the medicine on Thursday night. All day Friday, I started bleeding. And I bled all day Friday, and I was noticing, because I went shopping with my mom for maternity clothes at the mall, and as we were walking around, my lower back was hurting. Just very slightly, but it was enough to be an annoyance. So Saturday, I'm still bleeding. And I'm still taking the Keflex, still bleeding, and the bleeding progressively gets a little heavier and a little heavier as the day goes on. So by Saturday night, my husband comes home, and I'm crying because the bleeding is getting heavier and heavier, and it went from looking like old blood to fresh, bright, new blood. So that's scary, you know. I didn't want to think that I was having a miscarriage. I wasn't really having any pain, so we decided to call a couple people, see if this happened to them, get some advice, and call the nurse at the hospital. The nurse assured me that everything was totally normal, that bleeding was normal, and to call back if I had any pain. So as the night wore on, the pain started. I went to bed at probably 11:30 or 12, and all I can describe it as is just a light cramping. I didn't go to sleep that night because the pain seemed like every hour would get a little more intense and a little more intense. All throughout the night, I tossed and I turned, and the pain got worse and worse and worse. So Sunday morning, I woke up and I was like, I need to go to the hospital. I didn't sleep at all. I'm cramping pretty bad now. I need to go. So my husband took me to the hospital. We were both really, really worried at this point because I was like, I think I'm having a miscarriage. So we go to the ER, and I tell the lady, I think I'm having a miscarriage. We get checked in, and they get me in a room right away. I'm laying down, and they take my blood, and they take my temperature, my blood pressure, and it took them a little while, but they finally checked me out, and they said my cervix was closed, which was good, but the blood wasn't normal, and the pain wasn't normal. So I was in so much pain by the time that we got all settled in there that it felt like I was having a baby. I've never had a baby before, but it's funny because I don't get cramps with my period, and I was having horrific cramps, just cramps like I'd never had before, and they were coming and going and coming and going. And you know, it started out that they were like 10 minutes apart, and then they became 8 minutes apart, and then 5 minutes apart, and then 2 minutes apart, and then at this point I was like crying and crying, and I'm not the kind of person that likes to cry in front of people that I don't know. So they gave me morphine. The morphine did nothing. The cramping continued. So they gave me a internal sonogram, which while I was cramping hurt so badly, and they wouldn't let me see the screen, so that was kind of tough. And all in all, we were in the ER for about probably 8 hours, and the pain just progressively got worse until it just was just pain. It stopped stopping, if you get what I mean. It was just like non-stop pain. For about an hour, I just braced myself and cried, and just kind of, my whole body was tense, and I couldn't relax, but for like a straight hour, it was just pain. I just basically became pain. So my husband had never seen me in this much pain, so he rushes out, and he goes and gets them, and says, she needs something, you know, like, this pain is horrible. So it had been a few hours since they had given me the morphine, so I think they gave me this stuff called, what's it called? Dilaudid? I don't know. Dilaudid. Anyways, a painkiller that was more strong, or stronger than morphine. And right before they gave it to me, the pain eased up and actually went away. And so I said, the pain's gone away, but she was like, well, it might start back up again, so just take this. So I took it, and the doctor came in, examined me, said, okay, we think that what you have is called a threatened miscarriage. And it's when the baby's still in there, we see the baby, but you're bleeding and you're having all the symptoms of a miscarriage, so you could still have be having a miscarriage, but we don't know. So we see the baby in there, and that's that. So basically, they didn't know what was going on, but it turned out to be a miscarriage. I went to the doctor the next day. They took blood work. My HCG levels were going down, and so I eventually passed the baby, which was like the size of my fingertip. It was so small, but I could tell that it was the baby. And you know, they gave me painkillers, and they sent me on my way, and I was just, all I could think was, why is this happening? You know, I never ended up taking the painkillers, because although I had sort of contractions here and there after it, the pain never really started back up. So yeah, so that's basically my story. I'm sorry that it took me so long to explain it, but there was just a lot involved. But I progressively, once a week, I had to go back to the hospital and get my HCG levels checked to make sure that they went back down to 0, and I ended up not having to have a D&C, which is when they have to go in and take the rest of the baby out because it doesn't completely come out, and that puts you at risk for infection. So I was very lucky I didn't have to have that. And I just basically was on bed rest for about a week afterwards. I bled for about a week and a half. It finally stopped, and my cycle just kind of went back to normal. I haven't really had any other symptoms, or, you know, basically when it was over, it was over. The worst thing about it was, other than the horrific pain, was the aftermath of just feeling so empty inside, and having been pregnant, and have, you know, people were so excited for me. People, you know, had started to give me small baby things, you know, pacifiers and just little gifts, and I had them in my house, and I had started to write in a journal, and it was just really hard because everything, I went from having a baby to, you know, no baby. So, and people that were pregnant, or that got pregnant at the same time as me, are having their babies now, and it's bittersweet, because I know that as much as I love to see, you know, their pregnancies coming to fruition, it's hard at the same time, because I just, you know, I'm empty-handed. So, anyways, I found out, you know, that people, a lot of family members and friends had actually had miscarriages. They all came out and supported me and my husband, because it was rough for my husband as well. I mean, he felt so helpless, and I think it really made us stronger as a couple, because I saw how, you know, how he was there for me during the miscarriage, and how he, you know, just took care of me, and it was really a learning experience for both of us. And I believe that everything happens for a reason, and that God is in control of everything. So I just have to look at it like a learning experience, and like something that was a hurdle that we had to get over and both heal from. And you know, so we're ready to try again. So I don't really know what else I can say about it, other than, you know, I'm so sorry if you have gone through this. I know that it's so hard. You know, but just know that you will get through it. And I was very, very lucky that I had mine at 7 weeks and not later on, because if you've had yours later on, you know, I feel for you so much, because I can't imagine having one, you know, at 12 weeks or at 16 weeks, or, you know, even further along. And I know that that does happen to people, and they have to actually say goodbye to a baby. So I realize how fortunate we are in that it happened at 7 weeks, and, you know, and I just have to look at it like a learning experience. So anyways, I know this video is so long. So if you have any questions about, you know, if you think I left out something, if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to comment below. And don't forget to subscribe and follow me on this journey. And I just hope you guys have a great day. All right, bye guys.